Welcome to Module 1, where we will set up the foundation of the cloud environment. This is where your code will live. In this subchapter, we will focus on cloud setup and access. Let's get started. Before we deploy any code, we need a secure environment. In this course, I will be using DigitalOcean, but these concepts apply everywhere. Whether you are using AWS, Linode, or even a Raspberry Pi at home, the Linux commands remain the same. By the end of this video, you will have a server running Ubuntu 24.04 LTS. We will generate secure SSH keys, connect to the server, and most importantly, we will completely disable password authentication. This ensures that your server is locked down from the very first moment. Now let's go to DigitalOcean in order to create our first droplet. Before creating the droplet, I want you to know that we have a GitHub repository where you will find everything I'm sharing with you in this course. So for example, here inside the book folder, we have the first subchapter and you have all the steps here. So if you prefer reading articles, you will find those inside the book folder. And the slides and everything else are available in the repository as well. You will find the link in the video description. If you have never used DigitalOcean before, if you click on the link in the video description, you will be able to get $200 for free just to test their platform, and that amount is available for 60 days. Click on Get Started. That will take you to a login page where you can create your account. In my case, it logs me directly because I already have an account. And here we need to click on Projects. As you can see, I already have 2 projects. I have my personal website is hosted here, and in your case, this list will be empty. First, click on New Project. In this form, give the project a name, select the environment type and the purpose of this project. I will call the project Test. The environment type, let's say Development. Here in the purpose drop-down menu, I'll select Web Application, and the description is optional. So click on Create a Project. Let me zoom in a little bit. Here they say move resources into test. So here we don't have any resources, so we will skip this for now. And as you can see, the project has been created, and now we can create resources. And the resource that we are going to create is a droplet. Droplets are machines that can run our code in the cloud. This means that we will take our application's source code, put it on this droplet that is hosted by DigitalOcean, and the code will be running inside of that machine. So now you can click on Create Droplet, or you can do it from here, Create Droplets. It's the same thing. Now we are in the Create Droplets page. The first thing that we need is to choose a region. For example, in my case, I live in Morocco, so I will choose Frankfurt because Germany is close to Morocco. That's why I chose it. You can do the same thing. So for example, if you live in Europe, you can select either London or Frankfurt or also Amsterdam. Those 3 will work perfectly. But if you are trying to deploy this application next to users in another country, then try to choose the region based on where your users are going to be located. And here, for example, in Frankfurt, we have just 1 data center, so there aren't other options. Next, choose the operating system. Here we have a lot of options, but I will select Ubuntu, and here we have plenty of versions. I will choose the LTS version, and I will select the latest one. Now you need to choose the size of your virtual machine. You can pick between shared CPU and dedicated CPU. Inside each option, you must decide the type of storage, how much memory you want, how many CPU cores you want to have in this machine, etc. And here, if you select dedicated CPU, you will see that the price increases drastically because inside this option, the resources are reserved only for you. But shared CPU, you will be sharing resources with other people. That's why it's not as expensive as dedicated CPU. Just for testing purposes, select choose shared CPU, regular, and then select the lowest tier, $4 a month. And if you have just a simple web application that you want to host, then this option is fine. For example, I have deployed many websites using just this plan and it works wonderfully. If you see that the application can't handle the high traffic that you are seeing, after that it's possible to get more resources. So this doesn't, if you select this now, it doesn't mean that you are stuck in this offer and you will have to recreate everything from the beginning. No, you can still upsize the Droplet and add more resources if you need. Next, so here we have additional storage. You can see that here we get 10 gigabytes of storage. If you think that this is not enough, you can click on add volume and select the amount that you want to add. But this is not free, so you will be paying $1 per month per 10 gigabytes. In my case, I don't need this, so I'll just remove it. 10 gigabytes is enough. If you want to have backups, you can click on this. And again, this is not free. So if you need this, enable it and choose the right options. But I don't think this is needed for testing purposes. So uncheck it. And now we arrive at the authentication section. So here we have two options. We can use SSH keys, which is, as you can see, the default option selected by DigitalOcean. Or if you want, you can use passwords. But as you can see here, we have a warning that says, please store your passwords securely. Because passwords can be guessed if they are not strong, but SSH keys are much stronger. So let's use SSH keys and I'll show you how to create one next. So now we need to create an SSH key. So I already have one here, but I will create one by clicking on this new SSH key button. You can see that they give us here the steps that we need to follow. I will show you how to do that now. Once we generate the SSH key, we will put it here, give it a name and add it. But before I create this, I want to go back to the slides in order to explain how authentication with SSH keys work. Let's look at what actually happens when you try to connect to your Droplet. As I said, we will be using SSH keys instead of passwords because they are much harder to steal. The process starts with two files that we call private key and public key. And as you can see, we have two containers. This one represents your machine, your laptop that you have next to you. And here we have the server that we are creating on DigitalOcean, or you can create it on AWS or other cloud providers. The private key lives on your laptop, but the public key will be inside the server. So the private key here, think of it as your physical house key. You never share this with anyone. So this needs to be kept secret. Then you give the server a public key. Think of this as the lock on the door. Anyone can see the lock, but because they don't have the key, they cannot open it. When you run the SSH command, your laptop contacts the server and says, hello, I would like to connect using this specific ID. When the server receives this request, it replies with a challenge because the server is suspicious. It doesn't know if you are the real person or if this is a hacker that wants to hack the server and extract valuable information from it. So the server sends a challenge, basically a random string of characters that we call a nonce, and basically says, prove you own that private key. sign this random string for me. So if the requester is legitimate, that means that it has the private key, it will be able to basically sign this string and send it back to the server. So here the laptop will say, or the real person will say, I signed it using my private key. Here is the signature. Now the server will receive this and will try to do the math to verify if this is if the private key is correct. If that's the case, the server will grant access because it verified that the signature is correct. Otherwise, it's going to block this request, and anyone except you will not be able to log into your machine. So this is how SSH authentication works. And now I'll show you how to create these two pairs of keys, the private and public keys. Paste this command. As I told you, if you go to GitHub, you will find this markdown file, and here you will have everything. So if I scroll down a little bit, you can see that here we have the same steps that we followed, and here you can see that we had the commands. So don't worry about them. You will find everything in here so that you can just copy them easily without typing them manually. So the SSH key gen command is used to generate SSH keys. And we have plenty of algorithms that we can use to generate these pairs of keys. And one of those is called ED25519. So this is the one that we are going to use. It's faster and more secure than RSA. But you can also use RSA if you want. And here -f is basically the file name. All SSH keys are stored in the SSH directory. And if you don't give it a name, you might risk overriding your keys. So here I'll call it test SSH key. And here we can add a comment. This is helpful if you want to identify the keys. And now I can hit enter. And as you can see, it says generating public key with this algorithm. And here I need to enter a passphrase for this specific key. And here they tell me if I don't want to add a passphrase, I can just hit enter to move to the next step. When should you add a passphrase and when should you ignore this? I strongly recommend adding a passphrase for your personal key. So if you want to log in to the machine, type some commands, etc., do some maintenance, in that case, you will be logging manually. So in that case, it's great to have a passphrase because even if someone was able to get your key, they won't be able to log in because the server will ask for a passphrase. Basically, it's another layer of security that will prevent anyone from using your or accessing your server. But if you want to have a machine or a script that will automatically deploy your application, in that case, you don't want to have a passphrase because the script will be blocked. I will show you how to create two keys. So this one that we are creating is going to be used manually, but we'll have another one that we'll call it, let's say, GitHub or something that we will use in GitHub to deploy our application automatically. And in that case, we don't need a passphrase. So for now, I will add the passphrase and I will show you that we will be asked to enter it when we want to log into the Droplet. I have entered the passphrase and here they tell me to enter it again. Great. So as you can see, the key random image is, so that means that the keys were generated. As you can see, I have listed all the keys inside the SSH directory and I searched just for this. And you can see that we have two files. This one .pub means public key and this one is the private key. This one should stay on your laptop, but this one we will copy it and put it inside the Droplet. Great. So now copy this and we will use the cat command to see the content of this public key. So here, run this and copy everything. And after that, I will show you where to put that on DigitalOcean. I have copied the key And now I will put it here and I will give it a name. So I will start by entering the name. So test SSH key manual. So here you paste your SSH key and after that click on add SSH key. I have done that, and as you can see, I have another SSH key here. And now if I want to add another key, I can click on new SSH key and repeat the same steps in the terminal to generate another one. But make sure to have another name and to not enter a passphrase, because that one we will use later to deploy the application automatically. Or if you don't want to do this here, I will show you how to do it within the Droplet. Here we can select this first option, add improved metrics monitoring. It's free, so why not? And here finally we have this section. So here we can create multiple droplets if we want to, but in our case, one is enough. You can change the host name. So this is the name that will appear inside the droplet. We can change that. Let's call it, let's keep it as Ubuntu test project. If you have multiple droplets, using tags will help you filter them quickly. And after that, we should assign this to the test project that we created. So everything is okay. Now click on create droplet. Open your list of projects and click the project that you have created. As you can see, here is the droplet, and here this is the running indicator. So this means that this droplet is in the creation phase, but once this turns green, it means that it's running. You can click on the name, and as you can see, now it's running. We have no data because we have just created this. You have your IP address, you have everything here. And as you can see, if you want to upsize this later, you can click on the upsize droplets button, and here you can add more memory, more storage, or increase the number of CPU cores if you want to. So I have refreshed the page, and as you can see now it says active instead of new. Great. Now I want you to copy this IP address. Just click on the copy button. And you might be wondering, why am I blurring the IP address? Even though this is just a test droplet that I will delete later, it's a good habit to keep your server IPs private to prevent unwanted traffic or attacks. So copy the IP address and open your terminal. We are going to use the SSH command to SSH to the droplet. So first we type SSH-I, and here we need to specify the private key, and the keys are stored in the SSH directory, and here I have called mine test SSH key. And after that we specify the user that we want to log in. So in the machine we have by default we'll have just the root user, but after that I will show you how to create other users. And here we type add and we paste the IP address. Now hit enter and you should be able to log in. So because this is the first time we are trying to log in, we get this warning, and here you can just type yes. And as you can see, I'm not able to log in because I have added a passphrase. I need to specify it before logging in. So now I will add my passphrase, and here on Ubuntu we have this option that will automatically unlock the key. So if you want to log in quickly, that's fine, and just click on unlock. And as you can see, I am in. Let's verify. So this is the memory usage. It's at 40%. We don't have any swap memory. We are using 22% of the disk space. And yeah, it seems to be working. You can see that we have some updates that we can perform, and that's great. So as you can see, we are logged in as the root user, and this is the name that we have specified when we created the droplet. So everything seems to be working. Okay, so since we are logged in as user, we can type in sudo apt update. So this is an Ubuntu So this is a machine running Ubuntu, and this is how we update it. Okay, good. So now we will type sudo apt upgrade. Okay, type yes and hit enter to start installing the packages. If you see a configuration screen during the update, select keep the local version currently installed. Don't select any other option because we want to preserve the working SSH configuration that DigitalOcean set up for you. In the DigitalOcean page, we added a SSH key manually, so that updated the SSH configuration, and we want to keep that, but also add the new modifications that this update process is trying to perform. Keep the differences and yeah, let the update continue. Great, so the update has finished. Now we need to reboot the machine. So just type the reboot command. This will complete the upgrade process and start using the new kernel and packages. So you can see that the connection is closed. So I was ejected from the server because it needs to reboot. But don't worry, I can run the SSH command again to log in back to the machine. So let's wait a little bit, or let's go back to DigitalOcean just to check if it is ready. So I'll refresh the page. Okay, it says active. Let's hit enter and voila, I am back. And as you can see, it says 0 updates can be applied immediately. This confirms that the update process works perfectly. Now we are going to create a non-root user and configure SSH access. Why do we create new users instead of using the root user? Running everything as root is dangerous because sometimes you can make mistakes, or if you don't know Linux a lot and you might be using LLMs without knowing the commands that they give you, you might do something that will maybe corrupt your file system or do something irreversible, and that's not good. And if a hacker was able to log into your machine, he can do anything. We want to limit the things that we can do inside the VM by creating a non-root user. And if you want to perform something that requires sudo privileges, we can give the user that ability momentarily. So the command to create a user is add user. I will call that user Imad. So that's my name. Make sure to change that. And as you can see now, we need to provide a password. This means that if I try to run the same command, sudo apt update, the Linux machine will ask me to enter my password. So this is really great because let's say that someone wants to log in with this specific user that I created, they will not be able to do commands that require sudo privileges because they don't know the password. So create the password, retype it again, and here you can add additional information like the full name. So let me just add that. Room number, I don't need that. For the things that you don't want to add anything, just hit enter. And finally, let's type yes to create the user. So as I said, we want this user to be able to run sudo commands. So we will use the usermod command. And here we will type the user. And now we can see that we are still logged in as the root user, but we want to log in as this user. As you can see that I'm inside the Droplet. In order to exit, I can type exit and hit enter, or I can just hit Control and D. Good, so the connection to this server is closed. Now I can go back, and instead of logging in as root, I will use my new user. Hit enter, and as you can see, we weren't able to connect. Why is that? And here it says too many authentication failures. In your case, you might see just permission denied public key. In my case, I see this because I have a lot of public keys. So the server was, or my laptop was trying to log in with multiple keys and it wasn't able to do that. So why aren't we able to connect as this new user? This happens because the SSH key that we added in DigitalOcean lives in the root user. This means that we need to take that SSH configuration and also give it to my new user. So let's log back as the root user, and we can verify this. We can go inside the root user, and we have again the SSH folder, and here we have authorized keys. And authorized keys is a file, it's not a directory. And we can verify this by typing ls-la. And you can see that here we have a dash, that means it's a file. If it says D, that's a directory. So authorized keys contains all the public keys that we want to use on this droplet. In our case, it contains just one because when we created the droplets, we added one key, but we can add more if we wanted to. But my new user doesn't have this directory. So if I go to home and this new user, you can see that there isn't an SSH directory. This means that we won't be able to log in as this new user. But luckily, we can solve this issue by just copying this SSH directory from the root user to this new user. And the command to do that is cp preserve mode, and here we want to copy this directory to this new user. And preserve mode is an option that we can add in order to preserve the file permissions. So you can see that here, so let me just run this command, and instead of running chmod 600, 700, etc. on this new directory, preserve mode will do that for us. So in just one command, we preserve the file permissions, who can access this file, who can read it, who can execute it, etc. And if now I can look at this, so let's use ls and let's see what we have inside the SSH folder. You can see that we have the authorized keys. That's good. But the problem is that if I look at who owns that file, you will see that the root user is owning this file. So we want to change the ownership and give that to this new user that you have created. And in order to do that, we use the chown, and here I will also add capital R, and I want this new user to own that file. And here I'll go to home and .ssh folder. And now if I go back to ls-la, you can see that we have that this user is owning this file. Now we can exit. Again, hit Control D, go back to the previous command, and here type in the new user, not root, and now hit enter. And as you can see, we are logged in, and the prompt shows my user and not root. And if I want to, let's look at root.ssh. I'm not able to do that because that's not my directory. But because I have the sudo privilege, I can type in sudo and enter my password. And as you can see, I'm still able to look at things that I'm not supposed to look at, or do maintenance, stuff like that. But if someone hacks your machine and is logged in as this new user, they won't be able to do this because they need to know the password. Awesome. Just one note: if this didn't work for you, if for example you weren't able to look inside the SSH directory, that means that you did something wrong. Just rewind and make sure that this step works, because in the next step we are going to disable root login. We will not allow, even us, we won't be able to log in as root. We will only log in as this new user. This will help increase security a lot, because no one will be able to log in as root, because as you saw, root doesn't require providing a password, and that's a big security problem if someone is able to log in as that super user. Let me show you how to stop this from happening. We will use sudo again. I'm going to use nano as my text editor, and I'm going to go inside the SSH config. We want to change the following, I would say, parameter. And in Nano, in order to search, you can click on or press Ctrl W, paste the thing that you are looking for, and hit enter. You can see that by default, this value is set to yes, which means that we can log in as root, but we want to change that to no. We also want to disable password authentication, even though we have specified in the creation of the droplets that we want to use an SSH key, but it's also a great idea to set it here and not rely on the cloud provider to do that for you. So these are the two things that you need to change. You need to change permit root login to no and password authentication to no. Now, in order to save this, you can click on Ctrl S, or if you are on an older machine, you can hit Ctrl O, just hit enter, and after that, Ctrl X. You can verify that again if this works, just enter, and you can see that the values are now set to no. So now we need to restart the SSH service. And now let's test this. So I will type exit, and now I'll try to log in as root. Okay, let's see what will happen. So as you can see, my request was rejected because we have blocked root access to, or we blocked logging in as root. But if I go back and try to log in as my new user, I'm able to do that. So that's awesome. So now we have lots of layers of security. We have disabled password login. We are using SSH keys. And even if we use an SSH key, we need to provide a passphrase. And within the machine, we created a new user in order to prevent us from doing things that are unrecoverable. And if we want to do things that require sudo privileges, we need to provide a password. So this means that if someone was able to breach a layer, they won't be able to do something harmful, because even if they have the SSH key, they need to provide a passphrase, or even if they logged in, they need to provide the password. I want to explain to you how the SSH configuration works. We have this main configuration file that we have changed. Remember, we have disabled root login by setting permit root login to no, and we also changed password authentication to no. So this is the main configuration file. But if I go up, you will see that we have this line, include, and here we include all these configuration files that are inside this directory. We call this drop-in configuration files. Now let's try to look at this folder to understand what we have there. As you can see, I am using Tmux. This is why I have two window panes so that you can see everything in one place. Here I have copied that path, and let me enter my password, and here I need to list all the configuration files. You can see that I have two of them. And if I use this command, as you can see, let me zoom in a little bit. So here I am searching for this property that we have changed to no. And you can see that we already have it in these two files. What does this mean? When we created our droplet, we selected SSH authentication, and DigitalOcean created this file for us because on Linux, we treat these drop-in configuration files before the main configuration. Let me explain. You can see that here we include all these files before changing all these fields manually. This means that even if I come here and set, let me see. So if I set this to yes, this will not take effect, because if I go, for example, inside this file, so let's look at it. Here we have this command, and here I will just try to print what we have inside that file. And here I need to type 50, yes. So as you can see, this file contains just this property, and it is set to no. So this means that this will override any value that we have in the main configuration file. And you can see that we have also another file which is called 60 cloud image. And here we also have this property set to no. So as you can see, we have two files that set this property to no. Which one should we take? Because this is the SSH service, we are going to order the files alphabetically. So here in this example, 50 cloud init will come before 60 cloud image. We are going to read the properties inside this file, and we are not going to look at the other ones. So here, if we find that password authentication is set to no, we are going to take it and we will drop the other files and the main configuration file. This is why I said that the values that we have in these drop-in file configuration are going to override what we have in the main SSH configuration file. So you might be asking, why did we edit the main file if DigitalOcean has already created this for us? That's a good question. We edit the main configuration file as a safety net. If you ever want to do this in the future without using a cloud provider, in that case, you will not have these files configured for you. So you will need to either create one manually and put it inside this directory, or you come inside the configuration file, the main one, and you change the values manually. This way, you guarantee that your server is secure, regardless of the hosting provider. So now I want to simplify the way we access the machine. So if I hit again Ctrl D, I need to always specify the SSH key and then the user and the IP address. That's a lot, and there is a way to simplify this, and I'll show you how to do that. On your local machine, you can see that I'm no longer connected to the VM. I have closed the connection. I want you to type this command, nano ssh config. You can see that here I already have some entries, but I want you to go to the end of the file and I want you to copy and paste the following. So here we have placeholders that we need to change. Here the host, so this is just a name. This is a shortcut that we will be using in the SSH command. So here I'll call this test website. Here I need to provide the Droplet ID, the Droplet IP address. I'll copy it from DigitalOcean. Okay, I will replace this placeholder with that IP address, and here I will replace this with my new user. Here the identity file is going to be the private key. I think I've named it test SSH key, but I'm not certain, but I can check this. So save the file. Again, you can do it by hitting Ctrl S or Ctrl O and then enter. And after that, hit Ctrl X. So let me check. Yeah, it's test SSH key. Okay, and let's go back to the configuration, and yeah, it's correct. Awesome. So you can see that now, after adding this to the config file, we will be able to log into the website just by typing SSH and the shortcut name that we have created. So now I can just type this, and as you can see, I am in. And this is easier to remember instead of remembering which key you used and what is the IP address of that droplet. And now I can just type this and I am in. You have successfully configured a clean Ubuntu server and secured it with SSH keys. However, your server is still exposed to the open internet. In the next sub-chapter, I will show you how to work with the firewall to lock down the network. You will learn how to configure UFW to block unwanted traffic, set up fail to ban to stop brute force attacks, and use the recovery console if you ever get locked out.